This is Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network, and I am your host, Mark. And today's guest is Dave Trumfio, and he makes me feel empathetic towards robots. Dave and his brother Harry have been in bands together since Dave was 8 years old. Their first band started then and lasted through high school. In fact, at their high school talent show, they managed to snag the final spot so they could play the entire first side of Rush's 2112 album. Dave also performs an a cappella version of the first song he ever wrote. This is when he started getting into production as well. He started on cassettes and then began working in studios, learning how to mic and record. He was still recording with his brother, and they eventually formed the duo Pulsars. With Pulsars, Dave and Harry decided to do things their own way, which stirred up a lot of major label interest back in the 90s. But things happened quickly. Their first gig set them on a path to open for some pretty heavy hitters. But then their label closed up shop, Harry decided to go back to school, and so Pulsars just fizzled out. And they may have been gone, but they weren't forgotten. They've had a legion of loyal fans. And now, Pulsars has re-released their debut album, Pulsars. And that's just the beginning. Dave discusses how much music they found and what the future plans are for it and the band. So check them out on socials at Pulsars Band and go get their reissued debut. Follow us at Performance ANX on socials and slide us some coffee money at ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety. Grab our merch at performanceanx.threadless.com. And I hope you enjoy my conversation with Dave Trumfio as much as I did on Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network.
So tell me how we do this. Okay, cool. Hey there, it's Dave Trumfio from the Pulsars, here on a Performance Anxiety podcast, talking about the reissue of our only record that came out in 1997 and then quickly disappeared from the earth till now. Check it out. It's freaking out.
No, it's just everything's working. It's just this one program. It's like a registry cleaner or something popped up, and I've used it before, but it won't. Oh wait. Ooh, I think I just figured out why it would.
It's having performance anxiety.
It really is. I'm starting to have it right now, to be honest with you, because there we go. All right. Let's see. Woo. Because I just want to pull up one thing and I couldn't get to it. But it turns out it was user error, not necessarily the computer's fault. So, man, it seems like when one thing goes wrong, everything just snowballs. But I feel like I can breathe now. Everything's up and everything's working. Man, reset those passwords. My laptop is really old, and so when things happen, it just doesn't like to respond quickly.
No, yeah, I get it. I usually use my technology as long as I can.
Yeah, it's just expensive.
I know.
I mean, I've got a nicer laptop, and I'm getting all these notifications for things that have updated. But I use that to edit, because I also do a lot of concert photography. And so I use that to edit my photos and the podcast, but I record on something completely different.
Yeah, I get it.
Oh, man. All right. Well, let's get into this. The way I like to kind of start, usually, I shouldn't even say kind of, because it's basically every single time, is to find out a little bit about your history, how you got into music. What were you into? What was it like in the household? Was there a lot of music growing up that got you into music? What was the situation growing up in the Trumfio house?
So, my parents weren't necessarily super musical. Like, they didn't play instruments. They weren't huge music fans. Although my grandpa had a factory building all the mid-century stereo consoles for like Sears and JCPenney's and that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So my dad grew up with like a really cool hi-fi system. And when he was younger, he collected 45s in the 50s.
Oh, nice.
So our earliest like discovery of music was my grandpa's stereo that we had set up in our basement, one of the ones that he produced. And they were huge, like Altec Lansing kind of sized speaker with like, it was like a real piece of furniture.
Yeah, yeah.
And it had a tape recorder and it had a microphone and all this stuff in there. So Harry and I would just like discover, like just play the 7 inches, and they were all like Chuck Berry and like a lot of Chess and Sun Records, like you name it, like all the popular kind of like hits of like the 50s, the rock and roll era,
Wow.
So like that was kind of our introduction to music, was through these 45s and just, normal kind of like TV and stuff. But like that was really kind of like, what's going on here? And like, all the different record labels, and you kind of look on there and you notice I would notice who's like producing, who's writing the songs. Cause back then people would like play other people's songs a lot.
Yeah. So, and like, if it was a good song, multiple artists would cover the same song.
Exactly. And so like, it's like, what is this publishing and like all this stuff, So and this is when we were pretty young, like maybe 7, 8, 9, around then. So we decided pretty early on we wanted to start a band, and we didn't have any instruments. So a neighbor of ours had like a Sears guitar, like one of those kind of like silver. It wasn't even a silver tone. It might have been like not even as cool as a silver tone, and like
brass tone.
Yeah, and like another friend of ours started to play violin at elementary school. So we're like, yeah, you're in our band. So we had violin. And he became the guitar player in our childhood bands, but
nice.
that's another part of the story, which I'll get to. But so we had the Silvertone guitar, we had a violin, and then Harry wanted to play drums, so he would fill like cookie tins with BBs, and like we'd like fill up like coffee cans with water, and like play like different pitches with like chopsticks and stuff. Yeah,
that's impressive.
So that's our first band. And
my gosh, that's amazing.
And we got like 3 notes, like do 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 do. Like this is the actual first song we wrote. It went do 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 do. Spotlight spinning round, do 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 do, spinning round our head, do 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 do. That was our first song, Spotlights.
Wow, that is awesome. That may be the next Pulsars single.
Maybe. Yeah, bring that one back.
Wow, I am blown away, because I remember being a kid and doing something similar with the metal coffee cans, and they had plastic tops that would and then playing and getting, like you said, exactly, Folgers, and getting like old chopsticks or I don't know, something to use as drumsticks.
Yeah, like pencils.
But I never thought to put water or anything in there to change the pitch. So I guess we got pretty deep with it. We were like, that is incredible.
My favorite though is the BBs in the coffee tin. Like I gotta resurrect that, because that's a sound that is real. I mean, not a coffee tin, like a cookie tin that's a little bigger, like like Christmas cookies,
like those butter cookie things.
Yeah, like they're more like a 10 inches around. Like they're just a little bigger.
Yeah,
not like so that would be like. And then we had some like wash tub that we like somehow rigged up for a bass drum. But it was pretty funny. So that kind of quickly turned into like our parents going, well, these guys are pretty motivated. Maybe we should get some instruments. So by the time we were like 9, 10, 11, like once we kind of proved that we were serious about it, we got some instruments. So, our friend Tom, who played violin, he actually became the guitar player because he wanted to play guitar. Okay. And at that time, and this kind of goes in my roots here, like why I'm probably a music producer, but like I just wanted to have a band. I didn't care what I played, so I'm like, I'll play bass. It's fine. I'll play bass.
just want to be in it, man. That is.
Harry played drums. I played bass. Our friend Tom played guitar, and we played together in a band. The 3 of us, and different people kind of coming in and out. Probably right up to the end of high school. So
wow.
Yeah, probably like 3 different band names, but the core
band people.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. So who was singing in these bands?
Me.
Excellent.
I sang, yeah. So that's the other reason I never thought I was going to be a singer or had necessarily any talent as a singer. I just knew I wanted to have a band, so somebody had to sing, and nobody else wanted to sing. So
you step up to play. That is awesome. You definitely born to be a producer. That is for sure.
But I was singing and playing bass, so that was pretty. When it got into like the high school years, and we were doing some covers, and we really got into like the Duran's first record and the Rio record, and we would do a version of Rio where I would like play the bass line and sing, and that was like But even before that, Tom's older brother was really into Rush and a lot of prog rock, so we kind of came that way too. Like our first real show was us playing the talent show in 7th grade, playing the first side of 2112.
Oh my god! How long of a set did they let you have?
We got through it. I mean, they let us do it. We were the last act. They're like, okay, we're going to let you guys do this because everyone was just blown away. We were playing the first side of 2112,
Oh my god.
And we didn't have a delay pedal, so like Tom would down, and just like play like quieter. We didn't even know what a delay pedal was at that time. And then, like a couple of years later, like a year or so later, we found out like there's actual pedals that will do that. Where
were you for the talent show? It would have been so much easier. Oh man.
So we kind of came in through like that, like Midwest prog rock. The older brothers and sisters had those Yes and Rush and that kind of stuff. But then we kind of like, this would have been like, at this point, we're in the early 80s, we're like 80, 81.
Okay.
And we were like, I was really getting into like B-52s and like the new wave that's happening, the more mainstream. I wish I was a cool middle schooler that knew about like real punk rock, but I didn't. But that came a couple years later. But like then kind of started getting really into like all different types. MTV just started, so we were like really influenced by the first wave of MTV.
Okay.
And so like Blondie and even like a lot of like the European bands that were having videos on there.
Oh yeah, they did have a lot of European bands. Now I think about it, because that's about the time early 80s was when I started watching MTV. I was born in 73, so it was a little right around that era. And I remember, I think the very first video I ever saw on MTV was Talking Heads.
But
Life
as it ever was.
Yes.
I remember sitting at my friend's grandma's house watching that video for the first time.
That's exactly.
And we didn't know what to make of it. We were like, "Whoa, this guy's really weird. Like, what's going on with this stuff?" And, what is going on here?
That's exactly. I saw it at my grandma's house too. Not yours. My grandma's house. But it's grandma's and having cable before everybody else. What the hell is that about?
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely like, ooh, that's a little fancy. Like, we don't have that at our house.
Yeah. Same here. Oh man. So when did you start getting interested in production? I don't want to say official, but I guess maybe when did you start thinking about recording bands, your bands, and getting into that?
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of like hand in hand. Like, I wish we still had it, but we actually have a cassette recording of Spotlights.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like the kind from like school, like the little like square one where you use it for like just in the classroom.
Yeah,
so
like
we had one of those.
The plastic pops up.
Yeah, with a speaker built into it.
Yes.
So we had one of those, and so we would record our jams all the time. Like we were kind of obsessed with it from day one, because we grew up with the 45s and the recordings, so we were always like, oh, we gotta like hear what we sound like. So it started with like positioning the tape recorder to get the mix right, to like when Harry got real drums, we would surround the drums with pillows and stuff to make it a little muted so like we could get the balance right.
Wow, you guys really got into it.
Yeah. So, and then like 4-track cassette came out and it was all over. Like once I discovered multi-tracking, like it was like, whoa, like, hey, and we can use, by that time I had a really fancy boob box So I had the 4-track in my boom box, and we'd record on the 4-track, and then we'd bounce it over to the boom box, and then put that back over. So we would just go back and forth, and make these recordings. But, I quickly got the addiction, and the 4-track turned into a better 4-track with the built-in mixer, and then it turned into a 1/4-inch 8-track. And then by the end of high school, I had a 1/2-inch 16-track.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I ended up getting a job at the music store where we bought all the gear. And so that was my first job. And I would basically furlough my paycheck to buy equipment and stuff constantly.
I'll just work this week for that piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Man.
I was still living with mom and dad, I just had to get myself to the job, so I had to pay for that.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So at this point, are you thinking about either music or production as a profession?
Yeah. Well, the whole recording other people's music kind of came by osmosis. It got to a point where our stuff sounded pretty good. Our recordings were sounding pretty good, and other bands would hear our demos and be like, "Hey, who did this demo?" And I'd be like, "Me, in my basement." So then I'd start recording other people's bands. So that's kind of how my production career started. And I never thought of myself as a producer. I just kind of fell into it. It's yeah, come over and record. And then I'll be like, well, it's when you're recording, it's a little different than live. You got to kind of do this, and then that's called production, I guess. So,
Wow. Man.
Yeah, you're producing. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I am, it's so that was all pretty much still in high school. And, what was the other part of that question? I'm sorry. What was the other part?
Did you have a leaning one way or other, whether you wanted to go into production or music?
So I up until that point, it was you have the typical high school, you got to figure out what you're going to do with your life and all this stuff. And, anytime I'd be like, oh, I want to be a musician. It would be somehow surrounded with, well, maybe you could be a music professor, some grander thing than just being a bass player.
Oh, yeah. Parents.
So,
I'm a parent. I do that with my
music therapist, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm looking into all these things. And, at one point I was going to go and do a serious music program at either Berkeley, DePaul University in Chicago had a really good jazz, because I was playing jazz in the high school band.
Okay.
So I was pretty serious about playing jazz for a second, but then somewhere around my senior year, and, probably I was a full on goth at that point, and not really fitting in with the academic world. I had Robert Smith hair, and I'd show up for District 7, which is the district jazz band, and people would be like, who's this freak?
Yeah.
I was kind of I don't know if I really want to do this. I definitely want to do music, and I definitely want to have a band, but I don't know if I want to be in a jazz band. This is what's going to happen at the end of this. I'm going to be, at that time I was envisioning when I'm 30, I'll be a really well-known studio bass player.
Oh, okay.
That was kind of my goal to be, when I'm 30, I'm going to be a studio bass player. Yeah. So, and
wow.
That kind of went away and kind of came in was recording. I just was hey, I really like this recording thing. And I always wanted to be in a band, and I always was in bands, but that was kind of the way I saw me making a living, quote unquote.
Okay.
Being studio guy. So I kind of threw all my stuff into that.
Okay. So when you're starting to play in bands, your main focus is production, but you're still, like you said, you're still playing in bands like Glory Hounds.
Yeah. Glory Hounds. Holy moly.
Okay. I was listening to a little bit of that. I heard the club mix of Not Today, and that's wild. I mean, it's like if Love and Rockets wrote surf music.
But I'm not here to count, it's not the way I play the game, not today. I turn inside out, all you do is shake and shout, maybe you'll cross my mind, not today.
That is.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have that because like we grew up with like that 50s 45 thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I don't know, it's just I've always been kind of around hooks and like, you know, that kind of stuff. But we really love like the industrial scene at that point too. Like we love like the wax tracks, like being from Chicago. I would go to like, there was this all ages club called Medusa's.
Okay.
And it was just juice. It was like juice, but you know, kids would do whatever they were doing out in the alley. But
right.
you know, not me. Oh, not me. No. But you know, there was a guy that sell like champagne out the back door of the liquor store, you know, because like you couldn't sell it to normal people, you know.
Yeah, kids will buy anything.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the champagne of beers.
But this club was really, really important to my music career because it was like I was going there probably junior and senior year of high school, and it was a real scene of like the whole area of Chicago. So I was meeting people from all around, like even like Billy Corgan would go there.
Oh.
I went to high school with James Eha. Like, well, he went to the high school next to mine, but we all kind of like, there was like a scene definitely around these like clubs. There's another place called McGreevy's, but like, so I guess there's DIY clubs nowadays. I know like here in LA, there's a pretty strong DIY scene for the kids, but anyways, like this place was kind of incredible because like it kind of broke industrial music in the Midwest.
Oh, okay.
And it also broke house music. Like in the history of house music, you hear about the Warehouse and you'll hear about the upper floor at Medusa's.
Oh, okay. Because
there was a 3-floor building and they had like dance on the first floor. Like they had some bands that would play in the second floor and the house music. So it was like, but it was really pivotal at breaking like dance music. So like that song right there was definitely like, we're a band, but we got to be dancey. And like, it's a little awkward, I think, but you know. Okay, so hey, you got to start somewhere.
Exactly. You don't know what you're doing really at that point, early on, especially. All right, so I have a question because I've never, especially at that point, I was into more the heavier stuff. The Pumpkins were, you know, for one.
Yeah.
What can you explain the difference between like house and industrial and dance music? What differentiates some of that stuff?
Yeah, so like the original industrial stuff, like even like I was really into Ministry before they turned super metal. Like right. I like their new wave record, which is now just having a resurgence. It's called With Sympathy. But then they put out their second record. It's called Twitch. And Twitch was probably one of the first like mainstream industrial records. And it's literally like drum machines, like samples of like industrial equipment and stuff, and this is like all done in a very rhythmic way.
Okay,
so it's like kind of dancey, you know. Like there's a group called Front 242.
I remember that.
Really popular ones, Netzereb. Skinny Puppy was a big one. I was really into that. And then that scene kind of turned into new metal. It kind of like somewhere in like the early 90s, it started to get heavier. Okay. Like Ministry started doing I think Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste was like their first kind of heavy record, you know.
That's I saw them live once, and it was for that. It was 92 Lollapalooza when they were on that.
Right. Yeah.
One of the loudest shows I've ever. I was outdoors and I had to hold my ears. It was so loud. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean those guys were like teen idols of mine. Ministry, like Al Jorgensen, that whole scene. And then that label Wax Tracks, which put out their early stuff, like that was just a real like inspiration to me to like moving into my music career and really getting involved in indie rock when that started really happening. Yeah. And, you know, I've always been kind of on the more indie rock side of the fence. I've done plenty of major label stuff, but like a lot of my meat and potatoes is just working with up and coming bands on indie labels, you know,
so
to this day.
So we know you explained a little bit about industrial. What makes that different from house music? What would house music be?
House was straight ahead, 4 on the floor dance music.
Okay,
you know, but it has its own sound. The early Chicago house is very minimal, and it's closely related to like Kraftwerk and like the German techno music that was happening. Yeah, so. It used mainly like its classic early house used the Roland 909 drum machine, not the 808, the 909. It's a little more punchy bass drum. And like very simple bass lines, minimal keys. Like a lot of times it's like key, like a piano, but it's like usually set in like a chord mode. So you get that do, 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 do. You know, you like have that where it's just like block chords and stuff. So that was like a big thing. And then obviously like samples and stuff, like they would get little catchphrases and stuff like that. That would be like your classic Chicago house. Okay.
Because
CZ 101. CZ 101 was a popular bass synth.
See,
not the Moog. Moog was too fancy.
Yeah.
You know, like Casio CZ 101. You know, that was like, that sounds good. You know.
See, and I remember hearing all this stuff back then. I just never knew what was what. So. Yeah. So like the first studio I got a job in, they recorded house music and Midwest death metal. So I cut my teeth on both. That sounds like quite a dichotomy.
It was pretty crazy. Like one day I'd be recording like some death metal band with like, you know, like a 15-piece drum set, 2 bass drums, you know, and like learning about phase with microphones, because when you start putting all those microphones up, stuff starts to sound shitty really fast unless you know what's going on with the phase and whatnot. So as a young engineer, you know, up until then I would record drums pretty minimal, like maybe kick, snare, and an overhead, and I just kind of move it around but when you started miking up all the toms, shit got really weird. So I learned really fast from my mentors, the guys who own the studio. And one of the reasons I fit in really well is because I already was really into electronic music and sequencers and samplers and drum machines. So I was able to kind of like go right in and like, well, we're recording this new music. It's called house music, you know? So like, we need a young guy like you to like, can kind of like get in there and like work and speak the language of MIDI and all that stuff. So yeah, so that was my first like job.
So right place, right time.
Yeah, totally.
When did you decide that you wanted to be in a band with your brother again and form Pulsars?
So Harry and I were always in bands together, like right up to Pulsar. So from when we were like 8 and 9, all the way up until late 90s, we were in a band together. So
awesome. Okay. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Pulsars just kind of happened to be the first band that we were like, look, we just want to write like 3-minute pop songs. Okay. And looking back at it now, it's like definitely going back to our roots, you know, like we just wanted to do like that 45 kind of mentality. And we had this like attitude, like, it's just going to be throwaway pop music. Like, let's not care if it's cool or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Cause like you're talking like 93 going into 94, like, it was the music scene, definitely the indie rock scene, especially in Chicago, was very hoity-toity and very like there were a lot of rules and regulations. You know, like it's like if you're going to be cool, you got to be like this, and like, it's not cool to have guitars and synth.
Right.
If you're either a synth band or you're a guitar band, like what are you? You know. So we were like, fuck it, we're just gonna like we're going to use synths. We're going to use the guitars. We're going to do whatever the hell we want. Who cares about the rules?
Nice.
Do everything else. We were even like, we don't even care if we play shows. It was like the first band we were like, we're not even going to do a bio. We're not going to try to get any shows, you know, like it was like the first band we're just like, F it, you know, like I'm sick of trying to make it, you know, like when you're in a band, you're like, hey, how can we get a good show and this and that, you know?
Yeah.
And like, it was the first band we were just like, we're not going to do that.
Nice.
So like, you know, it just like we got together and we basically wrote like half that debut record in like a weekend.
Oh my God.
Literally. Yeah. Like really fast. Songs like Ode to the Devil and all that. I wrote that like almost real time. That was almost real time in the studio.
Oh my gosh.
just like the changes, and we're like, okay, yeah, and we'll just do this kind of beat, and and so we mapped out basically a first record in that first weekend. And I mean, there were a bunch. It was enough for a record, actually, and it was kind of tagged the My Pet Robot record.
That's a great song, by the way.
Thank you. And as things kind of like progressed, those kind of went off into like EPs and like, well, we'll save that one for the record. And then we wrote more songs, and that's what became the final debut record. But we did write basically a record in a weekend. At least mapped it. Again, I wouldn't say it was, it was like, okay, that's a good song. Let's move on. Yeah. Like we had everything demoed, So it happened super fast. Pulsars came together super fast. And then at some point, we're like, why don't we just go out and play and test it out and see how it works live? And so a friend of ours had this kind of variety night at Lounge Acts. It was like the really popular indie rock club in Chicago in the 90s. And it was like a Monday night, and it was this guy Fax, and it was called Fax After Dark. And you'd have like somebody doing poetry, and then you'd have like a band, and then you'd have, maybe somebody doing body paint in front of everybody.
Wow.
It's like weird. It was like totally like artsy, like variety show.
That sounds so 90s though.
Yeah,
it really does.
And it's a Monday, and we're just like, it's totally low pressure. We just like called up that Fax. We jump on the show tonight. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So like we go and we play the show, and it's a Monday night. There's maybe like 30 people there,
Okay.
And like it just so happened 2 of them were like big promoters for like the local promotion companies. And,
oh wow. Okay.
And basically they saw our first show and like came up to us and goes, what's up with you guys? Like, and we're like, this is our first show, and they're like, we loved it, like this is really cool. And then they're like, would you want to open up for Blur? And we're like, yeah.
Wow.
So there you go. That's the Pulsars right there.
Oh my.
Like we immediately our first show, like there's this like serendipity or something. People say, well, man, they just kind of came out of nowhere, man. They didn't cut their teeth. They got a major label deal like right away. All this stuff that people would say back then, but be like, yeah. Are you kidding? We've been in a band since we were 8 and 9.
Yeah.
So, this happens to be the first band anybody gave a shit about. So.
Nobody was listening to the spotlights. So I guess the question I have about Pulsars to begin with is, when you're doing those first demos before you even play a show, is it just you and Harry? And then is it just you and Harry playing live too?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Like so up until that point, we played in different bands. We always played in bands with different people, and there was always a lot of different like ideas of what the band should be. And then like that specifically, I mean, I love my friends that I played in bands with, but like in that time there was like this very fanzine centric, like, oh, we got to do what the fanzines are going to like, cause they're the cool tastemakers.
Yeah.
The rules that they would set, like, and people would be like, oh, they repeated a part once and it sounded catchy. That's not cool.
That's
like, I'm like, you mean a hook?
Yeah, exactly.
So like, we were just like, I wouldn't say we're getting fed up. We were just like, you know what, let's just try something and do this. And we were always in the electronics and drum machines, and I always played bass in most of the band. So I was like, you know what, this band, I'm not going to play bass. We're going to program the bass. The bass is going to be a bass synth, and I'm going to play guitar. And that's the way this band's going to be. And it's going to be me and you, Harry. Like, that's what we're going to do, and it was kind of before like the 2-piece like rock band thing kind of took off. Yeah. I mean, obviously you had like OMD and like electronic bands, but like we were before the White Stripes. We were before, all the 2-piece bands.
Oh yeah.
That kind of happened in the 2000s,
Yeah.
Even like, so anyways, like we were just like, let's just use technology. Let's just use it to our advantage. We started that show is literally us with a DAT machine. And the DAT machine had mono music, and then the other one was the click track.
Oh, wow.
So we literally like just gave the sound guy a mono track. I said, we're like, this is half the band. Make sure it's half the band, like make sure it's loud,
I love it. Oh, I love how you and Harry just Thelma and Louise your way into this. This is amazing. Just we're doing it.
And that's the show. That's the show. We just did that on a Monday night, and but what really was funny is like after kind of playing the game, being in all these different bands, and like, okay, well, you guys are pretty good. We'll put you on a Tuesday night. We're going to give you a Wednesday night. Like it was like that kind of you're building up.
Working your way down the week
to get your weekend show. We're just like, yeah, cool. We'll do that. We'll open up for those guys, but we really only play on the weekend. But like we'll play with Blur if it's a Thursday. That's cool. We'll play. So we just started like drawing these lines in the sand that like kind of turned the tables. Like wow. We're just like, nah, if you want us, this is how we do it. Like we're setting some rules and boundaries and
creating demand.
Believe it or not, they love that. Like, what do these guys know what they're doing? Man, next thing we know, there's labels wanting to sign us. We're like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Like, well, if you're going to sign us, like, this is what we need, like.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, because I'm putting myself back in that time. I can imagine them saying they wouldn't do this if they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
Nobody else.
I don't know. I mean, it was just the first band. Like, I've already been in the music industry at this point. I was producing records and I was doing stuff, and I just kind of saw like the shenanigans, and I was just like, what? I'm not doing the shenanigans. Like I by the time I was like, I'm in my mid-20s at this point, and I'm like, I'm kind of jaded already.
Yeah. Wow.
And so and then like right from the get-go, Harry and I were, this is disposable pop music. So when the major labels kind of came around, and that was a huge no. That was a huge no. You don't sign to a major label.
Right.
And that was the most uncool thing we did, But at the same time, it's like we've been playing music our whole life up to this point, and we've been cutting our teeth and playing like Tuesday nights, and all this stuff that you do. And, somebody's like interested and want to give us money and say, hey, you can do this you can go out and do this and write songs for a living. And I'm like, yeah, sign me up.
Yeah. Why would you not do that?
You know what? We kind of got a lot of shit from our peers. So, that was a very weird era. Yeah.
That was very weird. But you ended up opening for some amazing artists. I was looking at some of the lists, and there are a lot of British bands. Yeah. Oasis, Blur, Supergrass. I love Supergrass. Sean Lennon and Chibamato. That's incredible.
We did 3 tours with those guys.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, we're very Anglophile, I guess we call it. I mean, I grew up listening. I mean, I really love British music. I mean, I'm like into the New Order is a huge influence. The Cure, the Smiths, all the greats of that era. Jesus and Mary Chain, love Jesus and Mary Chain.
Oh, you ended up working with them too.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
awesome.
Harry and I were working on a solo record with William in 2007, 2008. That became Damaged Joy.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah. But that didn't come out until 10 years later.
So the album itself, I hadn't heard it until just when the re-release is coming
out.
Oh,
man. Okay.
So I don't have that 90s perspective, and I try to put myself in there, and I'm like, I like this. I don't know if I would have liked it back in 97 or so, because I was into way heavier stuff. Yeah. I mean, Soundgarden at that point got too commercial for me, being arrogant, snotty,
I get it.
a-hole. But listening to it now, I think it is cool as hell. I love Tunnel Song. That is great.
Pittsburgh has a real cool tunnel, and Pittsburgh has a tunnel through a mountain. Tunnels are what we like. Tunnels can be dark or bright. Now, going through that
tunnel. Runway. I like the little interstitial parts too, like Machine Talk. I think that is great. But my favorite track on the entire album is Das Lifeboat.
Okay.
I absolutely love that. That is
definitely the outlier. It's definitely the more like straight ahead, like rock song.
Yeah.
Which, and when when we finally signed a deal, it was with Herb Alpert and Jerry Moss.
A&M. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was after they sold A&M and they started Elmo.
Oh, okay.
It's like the Garbage was on it. It was a very short-lived label. And we kind of got caught up in that because it was a very short-lived. I mean, we didn't get dropped. The label literally went out of business.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, this is our first record, and we're there. Herb and Jerry are like, Das Lifeboat. We love that song. Like, you have good taste, Mark. You have good taste. I do. Herb and Jerry are like, that has to go on the record, and like we're like, okay, because it was on an EP before that, and we're like, well, if we're gonna do it again, we got to make it different. And I'm like, just kind of like shooting from the hip. Like, I'm like, it'd be really cool if like Tony Visconti could do like string arrangement on it. It'd be pretty cool. Literally the next day I'm on the phone. Like, they're like, okay. I get a call from Tony. Literally the next day. That's like Herb and Jerry right there. It's like, that shit doesn't happen. I'm like, oh my God. Hey, Tony Visconti. Nice to meet you, Tony Visconti.
Thank you for calling. Thank you for calling me. Jeez.
It makes us ask, why do you do it? And your lifeboat is from a leak. It's making a creaking sound. It is sinking. It is sinking now. And your lifeboat is from a leak. It's making a creaking sound. It is sinking.
I'll tell you one thing that really I really like a lot too, and looking at the original release, I'm assuming it was a hidden track or a bonus, but T9000 Walks the Moon.
Right. Yeah.
That is so cool.
So, thank you. I mean, like, I've always been into ambient stuff, and in the early Pulsars, like that show we did with that Facts After Dark, like half the songs were ambient. So we started the song off, set off with an ambient thing. We'd walk on. I'd play some weird surf guitar, kind of like over, and that's what T9000 is. Kind of was our intro track.
Oh, okay.
That we did in our early shows.
Wow.
We'd play like "Oh to the Devil" or "My Pet Robot" or something, but then like we'd finish this little pop ditty, and then it'd go into like Brian Eno soundscape. And so cool. Harry would be kind of like doing like orchestral stuff on the drums, and it'd be like this weird trippy segues that would be for a couple minutes, and then boom, we'd go back into another pop song.
Oh my God, man, I would have loved to see that show. Oh,
and then like, unfortunately, that we didn't realize how cool that was, because like we kind of then, as like the whole label thing and playing on tours and stuff, it's like, oh no, we're supposed to knock out our hits. Like that's what you're supposed to do, So now, like going back, like I think we're gonna start doing that again. But anyways, like, that was a remnant of our ambient stuff. And we have a whole album on that stuff too.
Oh,
which
wow.
we want to put out down the road. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Cause I love that. I mean, I love My Pet Robot. It is one of my favorite songs on the album. I don't know. I don't even know the right word to describe it. There's just something endearing about it. Like, I don't know exactly what it is. Phil.
Takes me for walks
The record's pretty goofy. That it goes from like songs like My Pet Robot, Tunnel Song, to like Submission Song, like about S&M.
Yeah.
Or it's all over the place, like thematically.
Lucky Day parts 1 and 2.
Yeah,
Those
like that's
cool.
like today sucks.
Yeah,
like it might be your lucky day though.
That's true too. All right, so you said Almo just kind of went out of business.
Yeah, well, it kind of ties into this whole story.
Okay.
So at this point, we were a band for about 7 years. It's end of '99, going into 2000, and Harry and I, we went through the whole gamut of rising up, going on tour and having tour support and all this. And at this point, we're used to the high life, even though we're still just an opener band, we just finished Weezer's Pinkerton tour and kind of after that. And we were working on our second record, and then we were almost done with our second record. And we're almost ready to gear back up to go on the road. And we get a call from Herb and Jerry basically saying, look, guys, love what we've done. Love what we've done with the label. Everybody, love all the artists. But this isn't the business we got into. There's this new thing called Apple Music, and kind of the whole streaming revolution was about to start. And we just don't, this is not really what we do. We sell records. We don't sell computer bits or whatever, however they saw it, Right. And they were really against iTunes and Apple Music. They were like, we don't want to be involved with this. So They basically decided at that time, they were so successful, they didn't have to have a boutique major label,
Right.
They could go off, do whatever the hell they want, so they were just like, look, we're not having fun with it anymore. And what we see on the horizon really is not what we're about and what we got into back in the 60s. So great knowing you.
Wow.
They shuttered the record label. And at that point we had to make a decision. Do we move on? We had a 3-firm deal with them, and Harry was like, look, man, I kind of want to go back and get my degree. And there's a lot of life stuff about, at that point it was just kind of whoa, okay, well, let's reassess this.
Yeah.
And we had offers from some really cool indie labels. And, I was raring to go. Harry wanted to go to school. But at the same time, I was really busy producing. I mean, I just finished working with Wilco, Summer Teeth, Mermaid Avenues, My Morning Jacket. I just worked with them on their at Dawn record.
Oh, yeah.
And then, so that was kind of their first big record. And then I was developing artists. I just developed the band OK Go, and I was in the process of getting them a record deal with Capitol. So as a producer, I was pretty deep in it, and so when Harry said he wanted to go to school, I was like, well, you know what? Let's just take a hiatus. Let's just take a hiatus and shelve this and then not put the second record out. There's some legal reasons around that and stuff. And we made the deal to leave the label and did all that stuff that comes with that. And we just went on hiatus for 20 something years.
Yeah.
And so then the whole catalog gets absorbed in the Universal, and because Herb and Jerry weren't into streaming and we weren't being really proactive, it basically got shelved. It basically just got put on into the mountain, and it never got digitally uploaded. It never.
Wow.
So it's the first time. So this is the first time this record's going to be known to the modern world.
That's why.
So it's not surprising you haven't heard it, because it hasn't been available. I mean, there's only been a couple YouTube uploads from fans, and they're not from us. Anything out there that's out there about the Pulsars, other than Lost Transmissions that came out a couple years ago, that's all fan uploaded. Here, I just love this record. I want to put it up there for you.
Oh, wow.
So this is the official reissue from us.
Okay.
And it's the first time it's going to be on streaming. So.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. So you're going to hit a wider audience. So take that.
Yeah, hopefully.
Herb and Jerry. Jeez, suck it, Herb and Jerry.
No, I mean, I owe them a lot. I mean, those guys are kick-ass. They're legends.
Oh, yeah.
I totally get where they're coming from when they made that decision. I mean, it was kind of up to us to take the ball. And, just life happened.
Well, I can totally see how two guys who really, made their bones in the 60s could see that coming. I mean, and it's not for us.
Yeah.
I mean,
they were very graceful. They were very graceful. And they was like, hey, guys, this is not the business we got into.
Yeah. So you get back to focusing more on production, and you got just this awesome variety of credited instruments that I've noticed. And so just so listeners are aware of how multi-talented you are, you have credits for bass, keyboards, synth, guitar, sitar, double bass, piano, ye old tambourine, the drum machine, cowbell, which is one of my favorites. However, it's not my favorite credit you have is just sounds. I don't even know what album that's on from, but you were just credited as sounds.
Well, I do this thing called the voice synth.
Oh.
And it's basically my voice being a synthesizer. So through like a space echo, I'm like, like through like a mic with effects.
Oh, so you're like a human theremin.
Yeah. I pretend to be sometimes. Yes. I mean, sometimes like I'll be in a session seriously, and it happened with Herb Alpert. Really, we wanted him on one of our songs, and because I was really into like the kind of his Tijuana brass sound, and I did this thing like I was like, hey, Herb, I really want a part that goes like. Like that's the submission song horn part,
right?
And he's like, Dave, I love that. Okay, I'm gonna play it, and he played it. And he goes, make sure you put that in with it. Oh. So my voice is in there with it.
Wow! Oh, that is and so then awesome.
So we ended up doing like another bunch of other parts just on different records. I'll go, hey man, you should do a part that goes woo 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 woo, like this weird like and people are like, dude, you should just do that.
Oh man, you can make a living.
We did.
That is awesome.
So we did. So and there's a really funny story about the voice synth because I called it the voice synth, and we actually got to go to Japan a bunch with the albums, and it's kind of a cliche, but we were kind of big deal in Japan there for a second, and we were getting interviewed by Japan Keyboard Magazine Japan, and we have a translator, and they're they're like, Mr. Trumfio, what's this Kawasaki keyboard? And so this is part of that's a toy keyboard that looks like a dirt bike. And like there's this Japanese chatter like going like a little kind of serious, like, and then the translator's like, Mr. Trumfio, we want to remind you this is a serious interview. And I'm like, I am serious. It's a toy keyboard. That's what we used on the record. And they're like, okay. And then they're like, okay, tell us about the voice synthesizer. And I just start doing what I just did, with my mouth. And they're like, another chatter. Mr. Trumfio, we'd like to remind you again, this is a serious interview. And our manager was there. Our manager was there, and our manager had to chime in. He was like, he is being serious. That's what he did.
Oh my God. That's incredible. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, and the sitar was fun. That was Pigface and Martin Atkins. I think I had the sitar at the first studio I worked at. That's how I met Martin. He was recording a band there, and I think I had the sitar in the lounge or something. And I just got it. I'm kind of, I don't know how to play sitar. I'm just punk rock sitar. I'm just like figuring out how to make it go. And he heard me, and then like a couple years later, he's like, "Hey Dave, you want to play on the Pigface record? I want to have some sitar on it." And like I'm like, "Yeah." So next thing I know, I'm like recording with Pigface and doing my like thing, and that I got credit for it.
That's amazing. Oh my God! And in between all of this, I mean, you're playing with the Mekons. You're starting your own studio, king size. It's just, it sounds like you just never stop. You're always busy with projects and helping develop people.
Yeah, I'm just a music lifer. I just do music. I mean, that's what I do. I mean, every day I wake up and I do something around music. And, you know, I got into doing the studio thing. I own some studios and I'm really getting excited about designing studios. So that's something I do. Like today I was just doing a bunch of stuff for that. And
that is so cool.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I'm really lucky, you know, that I've been able to like somehow bullshit my way through this. And that's what people go, man, you play a lot of instruments. I go, I don't play any instruments. I just bullshit my way enough to like write some songs and get some parts recorded, you know?
There you go.
You know, you didn't see drums on there because I'm horrible drummer.
Yeah.
I can program, like I can tap out a beat, but man, I can't get all my limbs going. Luckily my brother was the drummer. So,
hey, you know, it starts off with some coffee cans and cookie tins.
Yeah, and he sequestered that. He's like, no, this is my world. I'm drum world. So like, I just didn't go over there. And,
you're everything else. You can have everything else. Drums are mine. So what got Pulsars back together to release Lost Transmissions in 2021?
So I reconnected with our old manager, John Henderson. And at this time he was in Europe and he started a label out there called Tiny Global Productions. And we were just kind of getting like, you know, like it was during a Mekons tour actually. And we were in Budapest. He was living in Budapest at the time. Now he's in Valencia, Spain. But like, you know, we reconnected and I'm like, you know what, man, Universal, like Rondor, like the publishing company and stuff, they haven't really accounted to me in years, they haven't accounted to me. And, you know, it's like total breach of contract, right? So I was like, I'm going to send some letters. So we ended up going through the process, sending letters and stuff. And we got our, you know, in all intents and purposes, we have our rights back. So, and up until then, it was like, you know, it was just kind of known like, oh, what do we do? You know, because I wanted to put it out like, before COVID, for example, you know, that's how far this whole thing, kind of the reignition has gone since like 2017, 2018. So after a bunch of like just kind of going back and forth and figuring out all the logistics, we just decided like, okay, with John Henderson, we kind of went through our catalog and we have a shit ton of stuff. We have like over like 80 recorded tracks.
Wow.
So we kind of like formulated this whole like album schedule, and which includes, you know, of course it includes our debut record. Like this is really, we put out Lost Transmissions a couple years ago as just kind of a teaser. We really didn't do any promotion. We didn't do any promotion out. We just kind of put it out there just to see what might happen if we put something out. So
that was previously recorded. That wasn't newly recorded stuff.
No. So Lost Transmissions, after going through the 80 something songs, like we're like, okay, there's 5 albums, you know, and one of them is this one called Lost Transmissions because it's all the songs that won't fit on any of the other albums.
That makes total sense.
and there's like some outtakes and unused versions of songs that were on the debut and stuff. So it's just kind of more of a tidbits and rarities. And we were like, hey, let's just put it out. And like, let's not like really make a big deal about it. Let's just put it out and see how it goes, you know? And since we put it out, like we really, I mean, it didn't like take off a wildfire or anything, but it really did solidify that we have a fan base. And, you know, just the amount of people writing us and going, hey, you guys, this is cool, but when is the first record coming out, you know, and stuff like that. So we're like, wait, it's coming, you know, like, so obviously this is really the beginning of the restart for us. And, you know, it's the first time it's going to be available in the modern world. And, you know, we just wanted to make it the best we can make it. You know, we went back to our original cover art, which was deemed too dark. It's all black with the robots.
Yeah.
The original one's like gray. It's the original painting. And then, you know, while I was going through the archives and digging out, like, unfortunately, which is real bummer, we have none of the multi-tracks. And we have half multi-tracks. So it's really, we can't really remix the record. But we do have all the mixes we did. And we ended up picking, like, songs like Wisconsin Tunnel Song, Technology. There might be one or two others where we went with alternate mixes that were just a little more exciting, because like Wisconsin Tunnel Song, Technology have my Vox Phantom bass, which has a built-in like Maestro fuzz.
Oh, so cool.
It's like super gnarly fuzz tone, and like it's the sound of acid rock, I call it.
Nice.
So what I would do like on those songs, and I did it on a bunch of records I produced too, I still do to this day if it works, I'll take that and like do the root note of the chorus like in bass, in the bass octave, where I just kind of follow the guitar chords, and I do it left and right, and I call it the albatross.
Oh.
So it's just like this crazy like it's basically this block of fuzz.
Wow.
And on these versions, they're up.
Yeah.
They're up. Like on the original record versions, they're buried or not in there, because
wow.
when you're making a record with a major label or even any like serious label, there's a lot of people involved. There's like the A&R guy, there's like people, and like it was deemed these were a little too over the top for 1997,
Oh man.
So like, in 2023, when I'm mastering it, I'm like, we're going with these.
Yeah.
These are better.
Exactly. Who cares?
And on the actual tape box, it's the starred versions that we're using, because those are the ones we wanted. And then like through the progress, like, oh, maybe you have one where it's not as loud. We're like, oh yeah, we got that. Yeah. So
unfortunately we do.
So that's a special thing with this release. I mean, to us, it's the only release. It's the release.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are a good number of our old CDs floating around, because it only came out on CD in the 90s. And we're hoping that will drive up the price of those on the collector's market. Yeah. But this sonically, I remastered it. We used superior mixes, in my opinion. And I just think it's the version. It's for the rest of the world,
Well, I haven't heard the original. I've heard the remastered remix, and I love it. And
thank you.
I do like the cover. It's got this like Jad Fair kind of feel to it.
Oh, I love outsider pop.
Yeah.
Indie. I mean, I'm way into Daniel Johnston, Jad Fair, half Japanese, love that.
Well, what is the best way for people to find the album and pick it up? Because like you said, obviously there is a need for this within the fan base. How do people find the album?
So obviously it's going to be available on streaming. We have Bandcamp, Pulsars Bandcamp. It's the best way to buy it and support us directly, obviously. We have vinyl, we have CD on there. It's coming out through Cargo UK in Europe. And over here it's through Red Eye Distribution for physical. So if like brick and mortars here want to order it, they should order it through Red Eye via Cargo UK, sending it to Red Eye. So,
are you planning on doing any touring with this?
Yes. We're about to announce it. For sure we're doing. I think we have definitely 10 shows in October. It might be a couple extra added. We're playing the Risers Fest in Charleston, West Virginia. It's the first year they're doing it.
Oh, and wow.
The 3-day festival, we'll be playing all 3 days. So that's October 11th to 13th. We'll be playing Chicago.
Is that in Charlestown or Charleston? Because
Charleston, West Virginia.
Okay, because there's two.
I think it's the capital of West Virginia.
Okay, yeah, because I live in Virginia and I'm close to Charlestown, but Charleston is like 4 hours away. So,
it's
West Virginia.
It seems to be like the farthest west of West Virginia.
Yeah, that's about right.
I'm excited. I mean, they basically gave the promoter the whole town, like basically to take over the town for a weekend.
Oh, that is amazing.
And there's word that we might play in the observatory.
Oh,
the planetarium.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh my God. So
yeah, and we were playing in San Diego, LA, hopefully New Orleans, that we're confirming that, Birmingham, Alabama, Cleveland, Ohio, Chicago, and Dallas.
Oh man.
Yeah.
The closest is Charleston. You guys, is there like a social media presence for people to check out to get more?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We don't have a TikTok going yet, although my wife tells me we need to have a TikTok. All the kids are doing it, the ticking and talking. But we're on the Instagram and we're on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it at Pulsars or is it at...
Yeah, Pulsars. I think it's just Pulsars Band or Pulsars. I should know this stuff. I should be more professional about this.
We'll be tagging it. I'll be tagging it in the social media.
Yeah, it's in there. It's in there. It's pretty easy to find. Pulsars Band, I think. There's actually a band called Pulsar, and there's some weird like acid jazz band from Europe, like Eastern Europe, called Pulsars.
Oh wow!
But like, it's not very common, but and I guess there's like a French band called Pulsar from the 70s. But we're Pulsars, and we're the most prominent of the Pulsars, I guess, on the internet.
I mean, I love it. I thank you for sharing this.
We show up.
Yes. This has been so much fun, and listening to the
Mark,
music has
thanks
been awesome. And it's. I'm so glad that I've got a chance to hear it, and I'm glad that people who've been wanting it for years have finally got to get a chance to actually obtain it.
Yeah, I'm really excited about new people hearing it and younger generations and all that stuff.
Well, that's what I aim to do. To hopefully spread it around a little bit, get some of it, get some of the Pulsar stank on people.
Thank you so much, man.